Welcome back. And we're going to resume a wonderful California road trip that we're taking today, heading a little bit north, still in the Bay Area, and this time with Berkeley Haas. And it's a delight to welcome back Abby Scott. Abby, of course, is the Assistant Dean of MBA Career, wonderful graduating class of 2022 that she and her colleagues have been working with in the last 2 years and have just opened up so many opportunities for the next stages of their career. We also have with us Eric Askins. Eric is the Executive Director of full-time MBA admissions that was making those decisions about that wonderful incoming class. And perhaps, Eric, we'll start there because just comments you made as before we started the live session. As we think about Haas, about a school that actually has 4 pillars of a mission statement and embedded the values of the school, the reputation, location. If I can get you to talk about that and also frame it with what you have seen with this class of 2022 and the sort of characteristics that they've demonstrated from 2 years of a very long pandemic.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for the question and for the tee up of the defining leadership principles. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to unpack that for this audience. So a few things about our community, about Berkeley as a whole. I think the way that Matt has asked this question is wonderful because we talk a lot about our mission and our identity as an institution. We talk about how people look at us and determine fit and determine how they might find their way to us. And we use these values or these principles to talk a little bit about that, those defining leadership principles. And for us, and these won't be new information. These aren't things that we've invented. They exist in the world, right? Questioning the status quo, confidence without attitude, student always, and going beyond yourself. Now, the way that Matt asked this again is about how do the students who are on our campus embody that? How do they participate in that? We are located in, as Matt mentioned, the beautiful Bay Area. It is the center. It's the heart of innovation. We often talk about if it was its own economy on its own, it'd be the 5th largest economy in the world. And that's not only because of the opportunity in the tech sector, but also because this through line of sustainability, this mindset of innovation, this opportunity to be truly equity fluent as a leader. These all are very, very present in this community. And the students that we were just talking about before this session started, we're talking about the class of 2022, the ones who just graduated a few weeks ago, and about the way that they truly showed up on our campus. Like many students in the universe of MBA, they began their program virtually due to the pandemic, due to the challenges around that. And as they came to campus, they demonstrated such resilience. This year is a fully in-person on-campus year, and they've had the opportunity to support others, to learn their way around the space, to truly embody that sense of beyond yourself that I think is present in our student community. And we're going to talk a little bit more during the session, and Abby's going to talk a little bit about where they're all landing and where they're heading out. But it's truly this idea of community, of engaging beyond ourselves in general management spaces so broadly, right? Not in sort of the narrow niches, but the ways you can take these mindsets and apply them in the broadest of spaces. And I hope that gives a little sense of our culture, of our location, and all that we have to offer.
It does. It's a great place to start. Now, of course, as you express their great enthusiasm, their resolve to join and the wider Berkeley, their academic vitality and rigor, no doubt enjoying real impact in their professional and community. But what are the sort of characteristics that you have then see emerge? Because as you said, they took that leap of faith back in the fall of 2020 when the world was pretty much shut down, and how you've then watched them blossom and grow. What do you think that you and your team, Eric, saw in them at the admissions stage?
I think it's primarily it's a story of resilience, right? The ability to make a leap of faith in the face of uncertainty, which I think was a word that was used very, very often at the start of this pandemic and still feels true, although potentially an overused word. And so what are the ways in which they've shown? What are these characteristics that you're asking about? Well, they demonstrated intellectual curiosity, the interest in exploring beyond the bounds of what they already knew, to take the knowledge that they had, apply it in different spaces. They demonstrated a a talent towards empathy, towards making sure that there was space for others to be able to communicate their experiences and to be able to make space for the feelings that went along with those experiences. And that created an incredible interplay of being able to both be confident in what you knew and understood to deliver to the community, but also to then take a step back and hear from what the others in the space had to offer. And what we always found is, and we tell this story a lot through our applied innovation courses, which are experiential learnings that our students have a chance to do and apply in the real world. How often you hear the person who comes forward who's got an understanding of the algorithm, and the person who has an understanding of the go-to-market strategy, who each is certain that they understand that they have the full scope of what they need to move forward, and to meet one another and to be confident in your knowledge, but also open to hear from others and realize that they each only had one half of the puzzle. And it's that connection that creates those amazing opportunities. And I think that's what we see a lot in our community. We love the fact that we are a small program in a large institution, because it means that people get to know one another intimately. We often say that the student that doesn't fit stands out, because so many of the students are just getting a chance to get to know one another so quickly and so intimately. And I think it's those characteristics that have really blossomed here in this community.
It must be a very powerful moment, Abby, having been admitted in this incoming class for you and your team to then pick up, perhaps even before they show up on campus, and the journey that you're going to take as they explore, so many different career opportunities. Perhaps we stay with the class of 2022 as you look at what experiencing graduation was 2 weeks ago, or maybe premature for overall placement rates, but industry and what recruiters see, the sort of characteristics Eric was describing that perhaps have really helped them to stand out and catch the attention of some great recruiters.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here today. So this class is graduating into a very healthy job market. As Eric pointed out, they're very resilient. They're quite flexible. We hear that being an attribute that employers really appreciate. They're very digitally inclined, again, something that's quite useful. And they're going into roles at a leadership level. And in fact, our office, what we really try to do is to take a long-term approach. We know that they're only with us for 2 years, and yet the support that they receive from the school is truly lifelong. Our students come to campus, they connect with a coach, and they can continue to work with that coach well after graduation. They can come back 20 years later and continue to receive some of the benefits of the career programs. And so for us, while this class did extremely well, it's really about the lifelong support model. And it's about helping students figure out how they're going to make an impact. We know that's why so many come back to school, to a full-time program, and leave a thriving career. They want to have a greater impact. They want to find meaningful and rewarding work. And so we see that as our role to guide them on that journey.
But the view behind Eric that captures the Bay Area, San Francisco, just across the way, and the world's fifth largest economy and brimming with innovation. Is that reflected in a sense that Haas graduates are at the cutting edge of what's coming next in the graduate market? Are there trends that you're seeing, skill sets, one half of the algorithm, one half of the take to market strategy, that are really reflected in this year's recruitment?
Definitely. So our top 2 industries are still technology and management consulting. And those 2 have dominated our employment report for the last many years. This is the strongest year we've ever had for helping students get into consulting. We have the largest number of students entering management consulting that we've ever had, in particular from our full-time MBA program. And I think, that's largely because, as Eric said, we have this really robust and quite current general management curriculum. And consulting, as we know, is a great place to start and for many to stay, but for some to start and actually have a variety of different experiences to talked about impact, to have an impact really at a senior level, working with a team in a consulting firm to be able to work with the C-suite and helping them make really significant decisions. So consulting is up. The technology industry, I want to say a few words about that since you spoke about innovation and our location. This is and will continue to be a huge industry for our students and graduates, both for internships and full-time, as well as for our alumni. Reading the news, I know many of you have seen the stock market reaction to changing conditions in the tech sector, but I have to say at the MBA level, hiring has not let up. We are continuing to see students go to the big firms. Google and Amazon will continue to be two of our top employers. And then Matt, to your question specifically about, what are sort of the trendy things? What are the areas that students are joining within the tech sector? There's always, something current. And I'd say right now, a couple of those industries where students are gravitating maybe more in the startup world within tech include areas like mobility. Companies, like Cruise, Rivian, et cetera, tend to hire quite a few Berkeley Haas grads. Digital health companies, it's an emerging space and one that a lot of our students interested in that intersection between healthcare and tech are going. So they tend to figure out what's next and head there. The students that are interested in more of those startup type opportunities.
Right. Eric, in the whole application process, of course, you provide candidates with a 3, 4, 5, 6, very intense, full-on professional years, and really think about next of purpose that you've both described and how that might emerge in the next steps of their career. So when in an application, a candidate thinks about post-MBA opportunities, at the same time, that they're going to come in, have 284 remarkable open. Just you placing on that, or is it more to just get a sense of the self-awareness and maturity of a candidate and the experience that they will bring?
Matt, there was a little bit of static there. I wasn't able to hear the question in full, but let me think. I think I got the gist of it, which was around how a candidate can put forth their professional experience to tell their story. Is that fair to say that was the question?
And at the same time, how many opportunities they're going to explore during 2 remarkable years at Haas.
Well, okay. So thank you so much for reiterating the question. I think at the end of the day, when we're reviewing applications, when people are bringing forth how do I stand out? How am I unique with these limited number of spots? What's important for us to understand is not only where they're going, but how they're going to get there. I think that's truly key in understanding this. And this is funny, Abby and I were talking a little bit about this earlier as we were preparing for this session. And I've often used concepts around folks should have a really strong plan A and a really strong plan B in their application. And Abby gave me some new language that I'm going to try and play with here with you all, because we really talked about, well, what's short-term, long-term goals, if we were to think about it a little differently. It's really that the long-term goal is truly that destination. And we want to know that aspirational goal. Where do you want to end up? What community do you want to serve? What problem do you want to solve? And it's not plan A or plan B, it's path A or path B. What are the ways that we are supporting you to get there? And what we're looking for is an evidence-based description in the application. This is how I'm planning on getting to that long-term goal. My understanding is that if I'm making a transition from a non-business fundamentals background and I'm going towards a particular type of goal, that there's probably going to be a couple of steps and stages along the way. And these are pathways that I might take. And I think that that's really I'm loving that framing, and I'm practicing it here with this audience, because ultimately that's what we are looking for. It's not a plan A or plan B, but a path A and a path B, a clear understanding that there are multiple ways to get to that goal and that you can articulate that clearly and evidence-based within the application. And I think if you use that framework and you use it authentically, it should be less of a concern whom else is applying or how many seats are ultimately there, because we're looking at the best version of you, not at you in comparison to some arbitrary line.
Thank you to both of you for the time that you took to prepare today's session together, and just how it sort of jumps off the screen. My preparation was working on a Lego with a 2-year-old, and I think he had a plan A. I might have had a plan B. His algorithm was far more interesting than mine. So, Abby, with the sort of pathways that Eric is then describing, talk us through how you and your colleagues in the Career Management Center then work to explore, perhaps you're helping your students not even have realized that they had the little bit of the magic of your work through the 2 years that you share with them.
Oh, and it is magic. Trust me. I'm just kidding. I'm going to actually build, I will answer your question, Matt. I just want to build on Eric's response about the pathways. I love it, Eric. I think it works, by the way. Good job. And I just am reflecting on a question that I see in the Q&A. And so I think this is a great opportunity to tie those two together. So the question in the Q&A is, what's the story with how do Berkeley Haas grads do in the investment space, specifically private equity and venture capital? So, so that is, financial services broadly is our third largest industry. Again, sort of always, it has been for the last many years. And financial services, of course, is a lot of different things. It's investment banking, it is investment management, it's private equity, it's venture capital, it's a little bit of fintech and that sort of thing as well. So it's a whole bunch of different, really diverse industries. The reason I'm relating it to the path A and path B is that venture capital and private equity are highly selective fields. We had, just to give you an example, last summer, we had, I think, 20 students go into venture capital as a summer internship, which was a pretty big class, actually. But I think our club is, 75 students. So just, I say that to point out, it's a highly selective industry. Some students definitely get there, but some may not get there on path A. Some may need to take a different path A in order to get to private equity or venture capital longer term. And so that's where we talk about, well, gosh, have you spent time in investment banking? Have you actually been in a startup company in an operating role? Just knowing the kinds of backgrounds that these highly selective industries are looking for, we help them find their way by taking these stepping stone routes. Okay, so what's behind the magic? It's not really magic. It's pretty straightforward. Here's the notion. We know that when you're coming to an MBA program, you are suddenly going to be interviewing at a leadership level. It's a whole different level than where you've come from, even if you are already a manager or have been promoted within your firm and hired people. The expectations of MBAs are just a bit higher. So because of that, the interview process is a little bit different. And so we tend to focus, I'll break down our curriculum, our careers curriculum, into 3 areas. The first is storytelling. It's huge. It's about taking your raw material and your experiences and being able to articulate stories, because we know stories stick, that highlight how your experience from the past is relevant to the future, all through the lens of storytelling. So that's the first big bucket. The second big bucket is around connecting. Networking feels like kind of a dirty word, so we try not to use it, but instead we use the word connecting, because truly, if you're doing successful networking, you're relationship building and you're genuinely connecting with people that you're talking with. You're getting their advice, you're hearing their stories. And in fact, that's where, I mean, if I'm going to use the magic word, this is where magic actually does happen, because it's about genuine connection that leads to the kinds of relationship building that needs to happen in order to be landing these roles at a leadership level. And then the third and final thing I'll mention is really understanding the industry that you're targeting in a way, in a deep enough way that you can have a point of view on that industry. So, if it's the tech sector, really understanding what are the trends that are driving the tech sector right now, and what's the part of the tech sector that you feel particularly passionate about, where you want to make an impact. So I'll stop there.
Well, thank you. And thank you also for monitoring some of the great questions coming in. That was supposed to be my role as host, but you're doing it for me. That's very kind of you. Now, with this emphasis on potential and taking that next step, as we reflect, Eric, on your work with colleagues in the admissions office, there's perhaps sometimes context. On paper, we see job titles, a succession of promotions, maybe strong GPAs and other, and yet for some, the context with which the first member of their family to go to school, and that was a real achievement, whatever GPA then emerged from that, or just taking a hard road to get there. So with your colleagues, you must really take a deep dive to sort of uncover and place within a context accomplishments that are so individual.
So I heard you say something there that I want to reference here. You talked about, for some, it's a hard road. And it's interesting that you use that language, because the language that we actually use in our review process is the term distance traveled. How far and how hard was that road that each individual travels in order to make it to this stage in their journey? And so we do look through, we talk about the resume and the essays and the other aspects of the application, but it's that context, it's that distance traveled that's very valuable to us. So how do we unpack that? How do we review that? We start with an understanding that every individual is truly an individual. So there are structural challenges that affect some and not others. There are economic challenges, family challenges, a number of other factors that are at play in what shows up on paper as the evidence of their journey. And what's important, if people are going to share that context with us, is they share their learnings from that journey. We're all on a learning journey. And so it is as important to say, I faced this structural challenge, as what did I learn from it? Did I overcome it? Did it course correct me? Did it send me in this other pathway? What are the things that I gained? What are the tools that I picked up? Because again, that's what we're ultimately doing. We're looking at your application for evidence of how you'll be a success in this program. And all of this contextual information is in fact evidence. It shows, we use the term grit oftentimes to describe those who are overcoming the challenges that they're facing. So articulating a list of challenges is insufficient. But what did they learn from these challenges? How did they build and strengthen? Anytime I see, and I'll give an example, anytime I see an inconsistent undergraduate experience where potentially there was a dip and then, and then something happened, and there's a story attached to it. There's a personal circumstance, a medical circumstance that impacted that academic journey. I want to understand and give grace to that medical journey, but also want to understand, and what are the ways in which we recovered? How did you take that challenge and turn that into an opportunity? How did you then, if you tell me this is not a good indicator of your ability in a particular area, point to me the other things that are good indicators of your ability in a particular area and how potentially you compensated for that. We looked at that a lot during the pandemic period, especially during its inception, when so many applicants to our program had interrupted professional experiences or stagnated growth when an organization, as organizations froze hiring or were uncertain how to navigate these early stages of the pandemic period. Folks were able to tell us about all the things that they learned and grew in that space, whether it be the transition to virtual in an organization or in a structure that didn't know how to do virtual, or professional journeys impacted, or what we're seeing a lot now, what you hear, the great resignation or the great reshuffle, the great R, fill in the rest of the blank. I've heard of a couple of variations on that. But at its core, what it appears to be is a search for meaningful work, and for people to tell that story as well as part of their application. I think that's it's incredibly important in the context of their journey to be able to share those pieces.
I will incorporate into my lexicon. I find it very compelling. Perhaps sometimes individuals will look at the typical class profile that you publish every year and they say, oh, everyone else is so bright and they've got such strong scores, and look at all of these things that they've achieved in their professional lives and their community. To address the individual that you must see every year that says to you, Eric, you know, I almost didn't apply. How do you step up? This is your opportunity, you know, and a chance to share that story.
I think it's a great question that you asked that, because what I'll often say is, take a look at our median GMAT score right now on our website. It is a 726, I believe, right now. And that's not a number that you can achieve on the GMAT test, right? It's a 720 or a 730. When we look at averages, when we look at scores, understand that they are reflective of this class in aggregate, not reflective of the individuals. And I often encourage people to instead spend some time looking at the ranges as a better understanding of who's within this community. Spend some time thinking about your own personal journey and how you might best represent that journey in this application process. Pull away from medians and averages and, you know, where does a school rank versus another school, and focus on fit. Because truly that's a great opportunity for us to get to know who you are as an individual. You know, a lot of us have interrupted paths. A lot of us have, you know, our areas of strength and our areas of growth. And if we live within our areas of growth and see them as areas of growth rather than as strengths and weaknesses, then there's a real opportunity to even point to that area of growth as an opportunity. This is still a journey in that space. I recognize that this is a weakness in my application. You know, we use that term area of growth a lot in our applications, because ultimately, if you are looking to join a graduate management education program, it's because you recognize you have an area of growth. You have a knowledge gap, you have an access gap, you have an understanding gap of a particular space that you're hoping to fill. It's an area of growth. It's a positive thing to recognize that space and to lean into that space. And certainly that includes the components of the application that are being submitted.
As I continue my traveled and maybe one day a retirement due, I don't know if that will ever happen. I would wish that Heather, my colleague at Poets and Centre Court, would speak at that retirement, that she would describe me as the champion of the Career Management Centre. Abby, as you look at just the 2 years, but then perhaps we can reflect on 5 years, 10 years, because the Haas experience will continue to give for a lifetime. As you see individuals going into internships, and then perhaps the individual that comes back for the second year, do you see a real change? What impact has that had that's then preparing them for, you know, going out into the world of work at the end of the second summer?
Yeah, well, thank you for championing our profession. We appreciate that. It definitely takes a certain type of person, but I find, as I said earlier, it's people that are really interested in students, and usually people that come from a business background and so have that variety of experiences. So the summer internship is, you know what it is? It's 10 weeks. It's 10 weeks in a lifetime, which is really just a little tiny bit. So we like to think of it as a great opportunity to test your career hypothesis. Now, we know that if you're interested in careers like banking, consulting, big tech, that those industries make offers at the end of the summer, and they do a significant portion of their hiring, of their full-time hiring from their summer class. So it's really important actually if you're interested in those more sort of traditional MBA fields, it's really important to get in the game and use that summer internship to, I'd say, confirm your hypothesis that that's where you want to be. But for other industries, maybe for folks that are looking just to test a hypothesis that's maybe one of these pathways that Eric and I have talked about, then it can be just that. And that's where, you know, the 10 weeks, it's important to have a supportive manager and to work on a project where you're going to be able to be connected within your company and have a real impact that will enable you really to have fodder for your interviews in the fall the stories that you're going to tell as you go about looking for your full-time role, just to be sure that you are bringing those skills and projects to that full-time interview process. So it is highly important, I guess, in summary, for the MBA experience, but it doesn't have to be ultimately the job that you're going to be in full-time. It can be a great stepping stone.
Right, and the pathways, plan A and plan B, because the skills that they're developing with you and during their time, do you think that we place too much emphasis on the first job out of the MBA? Because, you know, as we said, this is going to prepare them stepping stones and as they continue to move forward in those leadership positions.
Well, I will tell you, a lot of MBAs don't stay in their first job very long. And so that, I think, does say that potentially we do put too much emphasis on it. We as a school are really looking for you to find your path long-term. I mean, that's really ultimately what this is. I think the MBA is actually really a long-term value proposition as well. The people that you're meeting, the content in the classroom, you know, some of the cases and things that you're exposed to, you're not going to be working at that level right out of MBA school, right? You're in an early career role. So the whole experience, the relationships, the classroom, even the job related curriculum is intended to set you up for a lifetime. So, you know, the summer internship and first job are important stepping stones, but it certainly doesn't stop there.
So Eric, as perhaps as we wrap up, we're in the summer, your round one applications in September and then through the coming admissions cycle. What are the opportunities to connect with Haas? You know, we talk about fit. You've talked with real passion about the culture of Haas that is so strong and so embedded. Cold winters in Boston, those will offer other opportunities. But as our viewers are sort of taking next steps, want to find out more, talk about maybe some of the online events, perhaps on the road in the coming months, and just how they can connect with you, with students, with alums, to really get a sense of Haas and being a great fit for them.
So Matt, thanks for that question. So there's a couple of things. The first is, in many cases, people are concerned that over the summer, they're not going to get the opportunity to connect with students from our community. We have been very well aware of this. You don't want to visit an empty campus. That's not the experience of what the student community is. So the first thing is I'm going to encourage folks to swing through our website and see that we've actually gotten a couple of students to host weekly student information sessions. And they're a great opportunity to get the student experience and understanding what their journeys are. These are students who are taking time out from their internships, time out from their news, so they can tell you not only what the first year is like, but also, you know, the first few weeks of their internship. We had a student who was hosting one just the other day. It was his second day at CVS doing some work there, and he's was telling that story as part of the story of the student experience. It went all the way through, you know, week one of internship, which was sort of beautiful. So that's available, and that's part of it. We host a number of Q&A sessions for sort of a simple understanding of the program. It's a great first step, and those are twice a week, every week on our website. They are live sessions with question and answer. We make so many of them so that they can be small groups, so questions and answers can happen for everybody who signs on. And then we are, in fact, on the road. Our team is traveling. We have actually an event happening in Los Angeles today. A colleague of mine is there. I'll be in Washington, D.C. next week. Check our calendar regularly as more events get added on, but we hope to be returning to those in-person opportunities. What we won't do is back away from all the reach that we've gained through virtual engagement. And so that will continue as well, including a number of sessions about specific industries or specific professional pathways, as well as inviting some of the centers and institutes on our campus to share a little bit more about their offerings as well. And so all of those will happen in a more virtual fashion. And those are, again, they populate regularly throughout our website. So stop by consistently to see new opportunities and new ways to connect. But I'm going to add one last thing to this. which is whenever you attend a session, whether in person or virtually, the value is not simply in the opportunity to hear from the presenter or hear from the resources that we're going to provide. The value is as equally in the people that are in those sessions with you, because these are the other people who are exploring this journey together. And Abby spoke earlier about the framing of the word networking versus the word connecting, and how networking can sometimes be seen as very transactional and connection frames as very authentic. I encourage folks, make those connections. I see there's 71 participants in this session right now, according to the little Zoom at the bottom. You are here with 70 other people who are interested in this journey. Get to know them. That is an incredibly powerful resource of, I applied here, this question looks like that question. This is how I'm preparing for this journey. This is how I'm preparing for that one. This is the same story I tell when our students get to campus and we introduce them to the rest of the community, and admissions takes a step back to pursue the next class. Is you are already standing alongside your greatest resource. And that resource is not going to be a 1-year or a 2-year resource. It's a lifetime resource. And that's the beauty of this community. And you can start that today, and you can start that wherever you are, just with the other people who are on this journey with you.
Well, that message will resonate not just with the 70 on Zoom, but I think we've been having over several thousands on the live stream. So I encourage all of them to take the next step. You've both been very gracious with my internet connection, but Abby, I'm going to pick up on your invitation for storytelling. And I'm standing in the garden of the French countryside, surrounded by timber, some hammer and some nails, standing right next to a cherished friend, Pete Johnson, who of course is a colleague of both of you, to build a treehouse, the most improbable project for the two of us, and the values of to learn and going beyond ourselves, as he picked up the hammer and nails and said, right, where do we get started? The treehouse still stands. He has always spoken about how much he values the Haas community, the wonderful students and graduates that he stayed connected with, and of course his colleagues. And I can see why he enjoys working with both of you so much. You bring an incredible warmth and real passion to your work. That makes us very lucky to have you with us at Centre Court and sharing with all of our viewers. We wish you a great admissions recruiting cycle, and of course, Abby, with that next incoming class and all of the wonderful work that you'll be doing with all of them. So Eric, Abby, thank you very much for a great session together.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Matt. Hope to see you soon.